All right, ladies and gents, hello, hello. It is currently December 8th, 2022, and on December 7th of 2022, there was an update to Age of Empires 2. So here I am, and I'm just going to kind of talk about it and get people's thoughts on it as well. I should mention it wasn't really the biggest patch, so it was kind of short and sweet. There are some awesome things about it that I really like, other things that I'm not too much of a fan of, but we'll get to that, all right? So I normally skip over some of the cool little things they do with like bringing the Frosty Friends of the North event. I don't really talk about the events. So we're going to skip past that. And we're just going to talk mainly like important additions to the game beyond those things. And then also the balance is like the biggest thing I want to discuss, especially with Titans League starting and continuing on into the new year. So they fixed a couple things here or there. One fix that they did was Shravamsha riders cannot block splash damage of nearby units anymore. So, for those that don't know what this is, you could have a Shravamsha, you could make like a box of Shravamsha riders, and inside of it, you could have archers. And siege onagers could fire and hit the archers, but do no damage to them because the Shravamshers, they were basically like a wall. It was kind of ridiculous because the Shravamsha rider dodges projectiles, but it was like it helped nearby things dodge as well, which made the unit even more insane. So anyways, long story short, they fixed that. So Shravamsha rider still dodges projectiles, but it's not like blocking for other things. This is just about monks, which doesn't affect too much. This is an awesome thing to fix because this was a bug that had been giving me and others big problems. Fixed an issue where units garrisoned in allied buildings could not be ungarrisoned. That happened to me in a Nomad tournament. Now, speaking of garrison, there has been a bug for about 6 months, which they didn't list here, where if you have like let's say you have a fully garrisoned town center, and you don't realize it's fully garrisoned, and then you try and garrison more units in that town center. In the past, for as long as I've known the game, your units would go to the TC, but then they'd stand around it because there's no room, right? Same with castles, towers, whatever else. Now, presently, your units just don't move at all. So you would like give your units commands, and they just stay there, which is obviously really bad if you're trying to save units from pressure. So apparently that's not on the list of fixes. So I'm a little disappointed there. But moving on to Civilization Balance, we have some pretty big general changes here, guys. The shared line of sight setting is now on by default for all matchmaking modes, including lobby games. So what this means is if you play a ranked game right now, you have shared line of sight with your teammates. Always. That's a massive change. You have to keep in mind, way back in the day, cartography wasn't even free when you built the market. What used to happen was you'd have to build a market, and then you'd have to spend, I think it was 100 food and 100 gold on cartography, and then it'd take time, and then you would have shared line of sight. So this is yet another change from the devs trying to make the game a little bit more approachable. And, you know, for me, I'm never anyone who wants to simplify the game too much. It's a complicated game, and it's a game that I think should be complicated. That's what makes it great, because there's always something new to learn and something new to figure out. However, I think this is a positive change overall. I think this is a positive change for ranked games. However, I don't think any tournament should adopt this. If we're talking high-level play, then it makes sense to not adopt that early, in my opinion. Because at that point, it's like there's beauty in the coordination and working with your teammates before it. So I think it's going to make games a bit easier. It's going to make teamwork with random people in team games more enjoyable and more achievable. So I think that's a really good change. Parthian Tactics now gives same anti-spearman bonus increase to cavalry archers as to other mounted archer units. Doesn't seem like it's a massive thing for me. A heavy cav archer anti-spearman attack increased from 2 to 4. So this to me it feels a little random unless they're trying to like make they're making a change to Parthian Tactics because Arambai are going to get it for Burmese. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Nothing crazy. Battle Elephant cost was reduced, but like barely reduced here. They're just trying to make Elephant play a little bit stronger. So as I touched on, like Burmese get Parthian tactics for their Arambai. I don't think it's going to change a lot, but it's definitely like Arambai are a weak unit right now, or at least they were. I think it's a good change. Fixed an issue where cataphracts with Logistica were dealing less than intended damage to Condottiero. Like, that's a really random thing that they fixed with Byzantines, but isn't actually a buff. They were probably already really strong against condos. The next two are, well, actually, there's a couple here that are kind of the big balance changes coming in here. Mounted units bonus damage changed from 40% to 20% in feudal, 30% in castle, 40% in imp. So in my eyes, the 20% in feudal is like, you barely see that anyways, but it does nerf their castle age. And I like the fact that they're nerfing their castle age a little bit. Now, I think Gurjaras still are pretty insane just because of their options. And so they're also addressed the options. So they reduced the damage from 5 to 3 instead of 6 to 4. But here's where I'm getting a little hesitant about the change. So they reduced the base attack, right? So the first hit is weaker. Like if you and lower numbers is weaker. If you have like one unit versus another one unit, Chakram's probably going to lose. The Chakram pass-through damage was increased from 50% to 100%. And then they also get a bonus damage against infantry. Infantry being like one of the only things that you could maybe sometimes have success with against the Gurjaras. So the Chakram's going to do 1 damage against quite a few units. But if you have a massive Chakram, because of the pass-through damage, they're still able to destroy things. Okay, so like my feeling is, and I've seen examples of certain like instances of this being tested, I think they kind of buffed what Chakrams are really good at, right? Like the pass-through damage is what was insane about the unit, not the base attack. And so, yes, they lowered the base attack, but now they're making the pass-through damage even stronger, which is what was the issue already. I've seen instances where we've got like 30 Chakrams melting 60 Britain Arbalest, right? And like that's just like the ability to just melt 60 units is insane with the Chakram. So I think that it is a buff and it's not a nerf to the Chakram at first glance. And I think that's a mistake. I think, you know, like this is a minor nerf to their castle age. They're the same in imp. And then the Chakram becomes stronger, which has been an insane issue for a civilization that also has the Shravamsha Rider, which is insane as is for a lot of different reasons. So I'm overall unhappy with the changes that they made to the Gurjaras because I think that they actually buffed one of their strengths and then they minorly nerfed something else. And I think this civ is still going to be really, really strong and hard to deal with because they still have like no weaknesses. But we'll see. And people are going to say like, well, they do 1 damage versus Cav though. Yeah, but they have camels that do 30% more bonus damage, right? So, I mean, why would you worry about Cav? And then if infantry comes into play against the camels, you now have +1 bonus damage versus infantry. So you got the pass-through damage is even stronger. And then you get extra bonus damage against infantry, it's just crazy. So it's going to be really, really difficult, I think, to play against Gurjaras still. But we have to see how it plays out, right? Moving on next. This here, to me, I think is going to be pretty inconsequential. I don't think there's going to be like a lot of changes to how Hindustanis feel. To be possibly too harsh in my sentiment, I believe there's like they're sitting in the back room and they get to the end and they're like, hey, listen, people are still complaining about Hindustanis. We didn't budget any time. We haven't worked on it at all. What do you think? What can we do? And someone's like, well, why don't we just bump the bonus damage from 25% down to 20 on the camels? They're like, great. Boom. Slap the 20% on and they're done with their day. I think Hindustanis, I actually don't think the camels are a really big issue with Hindustanis at all. I think it was more so they have so many bonuses similar to Gurjaras. So competitively, this civ's still going to dominate in majority of matchups. I don't know what a 5% tweak actually accomplishes there, though. Maybe it's like maybe it is enough in an actual fight to make a difference. Khmer fixed an issue where bleep list elephants were not resistant to armor ignoring damage. That's a rather specific thing. This one's a big one, guys. This one I've been calling for a long time. Poles, stone miner bonus reduced from 50% to 33% gold generation. So when you're mining stone with poles, you would also receive gold income. That bonus is a really cool bonus. I'd never wanted them to remove that from the game, but it did feel like with everything else poles had going for them, that it was too strong. So again, my feeling is this is actually a really good nerf. I'm a little surprised, or maybe not surprised, but I'm slightly disappointed we haven't seen one other slight alteration to the poles, as I think the Slacha Privilege unique tech is still too strong, and potentially even the trample damage on their Hussars, but that's a whole nother conversation. So what I would have liked to have seen is this, because I like this bonus. I wouldn't want it to be removed. And the Slacha Privilege, instead of giving 60% off gold, I would have gone to like 45 or 50. And then poles are still really, really strong, but they still got some weaknesses, obviously, and their eco needs to be a bit stronger to spam units. But we'll see what happens. It's clear to me that they are very hesitant to like nerf down a couple of these civilizations, which have been dominating the competitive scene this year. And I'm really happy that with the poles, they didn't want to address the farming eco. Like, the farming eco is insane. I'm sure you guys realize this. Like, Polish farms are nuts, but that's part of what makes the Civ cool, right? So I think they're going to look at other things before they actually look at the farms, and I'm a fan of that. Portuguese, new team bonus. So obviously the old team bonus was that they had free cartography with their teammates. That is for everybody now. So they're just removing that team bonus. Excuse me. And technology's research 25% faster. And that's excluding the age up. That's a sick bonus, man. Like, this bonus alone might actually put Portuguese way up there on like the majority of maps. We're talking like ship bonuses generating faster. You've got like, if it's you're going elite skirmisher, which takes a long time against crossbow, that like increases that research rate, right? Like, I can think of a lot of instances where 25% faster throughout a game is awesome, right? And does this also apply to like eco technologies and things like that as well? I believe it would. So I think this is insane. Like 25% on everything excluding age up. There's so many technologies in this game. This is crazy. Like this is like poof, crazy. Now they also have a new Civ bonus, and it replaces faster tech Civ bonus, which they had in the past. And foragers generate a trickle of wood. I'm gonna be honest. I don't love this. And it's going to seem a bit weird, but I don't love this just because I wanted to see how this plays out. Like, everyone's been saying Portuguese need a better eco bonus, but they never gave them an eco bonus because their units are cheap. And now they've just added it. Like, this feels very random. You're foraging and you're getting wood. It doesn't, like, fit anything. It doesn't fit the game. I mean, I guess it's different. It's kind of like the stone gold thing. It is something else, right? So you could have some unique build orders with the Civ. But I think personally I would have preferred to see like this come in and not this. Or basically one or the other. That said, I'm actually really excited about Portuguese. I'm very excited. They're gonna have a better Dark Age. Throughout the game, they're gonna be a bit more spicy. And because this is a team bonus, I think we could see some unique things in team games. So, yeah, we'll see. Okay. Moving on, you have the Tatars where they fix an issue with the flaming camels. Not something I'm going to spend too much time on. And then randomly, the warship discount no longer affects transport ships for Vikings. Again, not sure about that one. Does it make Vikings a little weaker on like migration or islands? Maybe. They're still going to be top tier there, so it's not that big of a deal. For the most part, that's it, guys. They did address a couple things with maps. They're always trying to tweak some things here or there. They also have a lot of information about the game coming to Xbox, which I might make a whole separate video on my feelings on. They're just talking about things that they're bringing to the Age franchise as a whole, but that's pretty much the patch. The negatives for me of the patch is that I feel like it's a pretty light patch. I think that there was more that could have potentially been tweaked. You got to keep in mind, I'm coming from the perspective of I'm hosting an event coming up here in Titans League Season 2, and we're literally trying to make the rules for it based around how Titans League Season 1 went. And newsflash, if you missed it, Burgundians, Hindustanis, Gurjaras, and Poles, so those 4 civilizations in particular, were either picked first or like banned first almost every single set. And so clearly there was like this feeling there that those civilizations are nuts. But they did, in some ways, do some nerfs there. They did do some tweaks. Really like the direction we're headed. And I'm excited to see how the new Portuguese are. So we might be playing with them here in a bit. So obviously, if this hits YouTube later on, which it will, give me your thoughts. I'm always very... how would you describe my takes when it comes to these patch notes? I think I'm very, I don't want to say the word aggressive, but I'm very particular. I think that's the way to say it. So I'm a very particular person, and oftentimes that can lead to me misjudging things or being wrong, because this is a take before I get to see a lot of things and test a lot of things, right? And obviously that's the big thing with the game. So I'll be curious to see if people agree, disagree, or whatever with my takes when it comes to the balance. Been doing this a long time. Always opinionated. That's probably never going to change. But obviously, thank you to the devs for releasing a patch. And I'm excited to see what happens. Cool. People said, critical, you have high standards, conservatively skeptical, and then skeptical. Yeah, I am all those things possibly. And as much as I always try and do a better job, and I just, when it comes to balance, I can be very aggressive at times, and that's just how it is.